1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, my name is Jen Pinarski. I'm the Manager of Communications and Public Engagement, and I'm here to tell you more about the city's Public Engagement Framework Evaluation.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tell Me More. I'm host Autumn Hume, and this is the podcast that knows public engagement is about so much more than an online survey. Today's episode centers on a topic near and dear to me for two reasons. Firstly, I like sharing my opinion. I have a lot of them on a lot of subjects, and if there is a way to share those thoughts so they might positively impact the environment around me, well, I am there. The second reason is because I work in public engagement, and today's guest is actually my boss. So everyone, please be on your best behavior. Jen, it's great to have you here. I know you're a longtime listener, but a first-time guest, so welcome to the studio, or meeting room.
Thanks, Autumn and Paul, for having me.
I think public engagement is a topic that a lot of people have strong feelings about, but a definition can be hard to nail down. So could you start by telling me a bit about what public engagement is and what it means in the context of the City of Kingston?
You're right, Autumn. A lot of people do have strong feelings about public engagement. But the simplest definition of public engagement is how we at the city involve interested and affected people in our problem-solving and decision-making processes. However, in the context of the City of Kingston, we have what we call the Public Engagement Framework and Charter to guide the way we plan, conduct, and evaluate engagement. It's based on the International Association of Public Participation Standards, which is a global standard. Around here, we call it IAP2 for short.
So we're trying to live up to global expectations here. How does public engagement dovetail with communications? Why are these two things in the same department?
That's a great question, Autumn. Public engagement can be looked at on a 5-step spectrum according to IP2. And we begin at inform at one level, and we move along all the way to the other end at empower. So some examples of those two ends of the spectrum in the community would be if we inform the community about a decision that's been made, and over at empower, examples of that are referendums and elections where all of the decision-making power is put into the community.
So we're sort of covering a spectrum here from, hey, we're telling you that stuff is happening, all the way through to, we want you to actually tell us how stuff should happen.
Yeah, that's correct. And so to answer your question about how does it dovetail with communications, when we think about engagement, authentic engagement always needs to begin at the informed level, when we let people know that we're going to be making a decision and that feedback is needed. But it's also important to understand that informing folks is a type of engagement on its own. Communicating that a decision has been made and how that decision was made helps us build trust between the community and the city.
Trying to keep the air clear. So I want to briefly dive into some of the successes and some of the challenges that the city's public engagement has faced over the last few years before we get into the framework topic too much. Could you tell me about some of the successes we've seen through the public engagement program first?
One of the proudest moments for Kingston was being recognized with an IAP2 Canada Core Values Award. And that award came in, it was given to the city for its work embedding a culture of engagement in its employees, which includes activities like creating tools and resources for staff. So when you've been out in the community and conducting engagement as staff, we have a whole roster of tools from sign-up sheets and iPads. And then for staff as well, that includes ongoing training and skills. And there's actually staff taking training right now, and we've had more than 100 staff take part and get their actual certification in public participation. Another significant achievement is the online Get Involved platform. It's our hub for all things engagement, and with more than 14,000 participants, we have one of the largest participant bases among Canadian municipalities.
That's a lot. I just want to sort of highlight, though, that bit about how it's not just our department specifically doing this work, but building the capacity across the organization for others. And following up on that, what are some of the challenges that have been faced? Because it hasn't all been smooth roads necessarily.
You're right, Autumn. It hasn't always been easy. And I think most recently, navigating public engagement during COVID-19 was a challenge. We have a really involved community, and making sure that their voices were heard, even when we couldn't gather in person safely. So we did a lot of things differently, moving meetings from in-person in City Hall to Zoom, collecting feedback by mail and by phone. Those are some of the ways that we kept receiving feedback. And I'm really proud because of how the community and staff navigated this, because it wasn't just the community who had to adapt. It was also staff having to rethink the way that we could receive input meaningfully from people.
It was a big scramble to try and reevaluate how we were doing all that work in light of a new context. So, yeah, I could see that being a huge challenge. So we've got a working idea of what public engagement means, what it entails, some examples, successes, challenges. I want to get back to this framework evaluation, though, and how does that guide public engagement? What is a framework serve public engagement for us?
You can think about the public engagement framework as being a set of guidelines or the structure that we file everything about public engagement inside. So it doesn't replace any existing laws, but it supports the way that we meet and, when appropriate, exceed the legal requirements for engagement. So some of the things that it defines are when we communicate, making sure that we are transparent and accountable, that we are inclusive, that we respect everybody's opinions, that we have a clear and coordinated approach so that people understand when we're going out to them, and then what we then expect from a community, and in turn what the community can respect from us, and that we are always continuously improving the way that we go about engagement.
So it's about defining a clear process so that everybody on every side of the process understands their role and how they can contribute and how feedback is going to be used, that kind of thing.
No, I think that's a really good way of summing that up, Autumn, because public engagement is more than something that is just the city's responsibility, that there's roles throughout the entire process for everyone. So there's community member roles. So how does a resident get involved? There's the roles of council and mayor, and then there's also the role of city staff. So it truly is something that takes all the parties involved in order to have a good outcome.
Okay, so why now? Why are we evaluating it now? We've had the framework in place for a couple of years.
No, I think that's a really good question. And with the successes that we've had with engagement, it would be easy to go, we're doing a great job and leave it there. But Kingston as a community has changed a lot, especially post-pandemic, when we had a lot of people move to Kingston seeking a better quality of life. And that demographic shift from people who perhaps were born and raised in Kingston or have long-time roots in Kingston, and a lot of newcomers joining the community, making sure that those people who are new to Kingston have an opportunity to have their feedback heard. And those learnings that we also took out through COVID-19 about the way people's preferences for wanting to be heard, we learned that people really do enjoy Zoom meetings, maybe probably not as much as we did back in those early days where we had, wall-to-wall Zoom meetings, but people having that flexibility to join in on a session from the comfort of their home, those types of learnings. And I think when you think about evaluation, it's about being curious about processes and wanting to improve. So asking those questions, who are we hearing from? Who are we not hearing from? What are the emerging trends in engagement? How is our population changing? How is staff capacity changing? And we also have a brand new council and a brand new set of council priorities, and they're really ambitious, and we want to make sure that the way that we engage helps council meet those priorities.
So where are we in the evaluation process now, and what comes next?
Where we are now is actually one of my favorite parts of public engagement. Over the summer, we were out in the community. We went to a lot of events asking people to offer feedback on engagement. And we also did some online surveying. And so where we are now is taking a look at all of that feedback. And then what is next is then part of public engagement is reporting back out to the community. So very soon we'll be sharing the results of that online engagement, and then I guess reconfirming, this is what you told us. Is this still true to you?
Okay, so it's probably a little early to report back on the feedback that we received in the first part of this process, but are there any themes that you're seeing that are starting to emerge? Anything that surprised you?
I think the things that surprised me the most from the initial survey results that I'm seeing is that people want to continue meeting on Zoom. And we've experimented with hybrid engagement in Autumn. You've taken part in that as well. So combining in-person and online methods of engagement and giving people that ultimate flexibility. So despite the fact that we met online for so long during COVID-19, people still are interested in that as a meeting tactic. So that actually really surprised me.
I mean, I can kind of see the benefit. You can do your dishes and you can contribute your thoughts on a new park.
We've had a couple of projects like that where we always give space for people to ask questions or ask follow-up questions or clarifying comments. And we've had people, type into the Zoom chat, sorry, can't talk right now, putting my kiddo to bed or something like that. So it's really nice to know that people have welcomed us into their homes in that way.
So, and I know from our work together that you're genuinely invested in and personally interested in public engagement, like offline, off mic. So there has to be some of this process that's like a little exciting to you. What are you personally most excited about in terms of this evaluation?
After Kingston received the Core Values Award in 2019, we are still often approached by other municipalities and other agencies in Kingston because we're seen as a leader in public engagement. So what's really exciting to me is knowing that we are seen as leaders, and by being curious and asking questions about how we can improve the way that we remove barriers or seek input, and being able to move that process forward to be more inclusive, that is really exciting to me.
I think that's pretty good. This seems like a great place to leave it. Jen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Autumn and Paul, for having me.
And thank you for listening today. If you haven't been, I strongly encourage everyone to visit getinvolved.cityofkingston.ca. It's our repository of current and past engagement work. Sign up for a free account and you'll get updates on new opportunities to offer feedback and input on things that really do shape your community. And if you enjoyed this podcast, we have more. Check out our previous episodes to learn more about the city and the work that we do. And if you have a topic you'd like us to tell you more about, also, please let us know. We're always happy to receive mail. Send us a note by emailing podcasts@cityofkingston.ca. Stay well, everyone.